Good evening. I am Mary Ferdig, and on behalf of the Parent and Community Involvement Task Force, a group of volunteers who work to promote and enhance parent and community involvement, and district staff, I welcome you to this special session of Parent University, Raising Our Children in a Virtual World, the Dangers of Social Media. During the past 18 months, we have seen the power of technology in a way that we never could have imagined. In the spring of 2020, Broward County Public Schools, along with many other school systems nationwide, had to convert to a virtual platform to ensure that our students continued learning while remaining safe in a pandemic. We began the 2020-2021 school year totally virtually, and then converted to both in-person and virtual before returning this year to total in-person learning. Experiencing all of this made us realize the power of technology. And just as educational software transforms what happens in the classroom daily, so do the many programs that we use in the workplace. That is the positive side of technology. But it's very important to realize the negatives as well. This evening, we will focus on a topic that has been in the news frequently in recent months, the dangers of social media. Keeping our children safe in a virtual world requires awareness and knowledge of the many aspects of social media. Tonight, we have put together a program that provides an overview as well as tips for addressing the challenges facing our children and our community. At this time, I would like to introduce the board member who proposed the Parent Community Involvement Task Force, Vice Chair of the Broward County School Board, Lori Rich Levinson.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you for your leadership as Parent Community Involvement Task Force Chair and for your ongoing long-term volunteer commitment to Broward County Public Schools. You are an integral part of these parent universities. On behalf of the School Board of Broward County, welcome to Parent University number 7, Raising Children in a Virtual World, the Dangers of Social Media. Tonight's topic is one affecting our students and youth throughout the nation. With the increasing number of social media apps kids use to communicate with their peers, the increasing popularity of social media challenges, and frequent use of various websites, the Parent Community Involvement Task Force and Broward County Public Schools present this important and relevant webinar to make families aware of the potential dangers and consequences students can face. Families will hear representatives from the Broward Sheriff's Office, the Broward State Attorney's Office, as well as district staff discuss the risks associated with improper use. Additionally, experts will share tips on what to look for, what behavior should be cause for concern, how to talk to your kids about what type of engagement is appropriate and inappropriate, and how to implement parental controls. A multitude of resources will be provided tonight. This webinar is available in 7 languages: English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, Chinese, Arabic, and Vietnamese on the district website at www.browardschools.com/parentuniversity. The program, and also on the homepage of your child's school website under additional links, Parent University. The program is also live streaming in English and Spanish on Beacon TV at www.beacontv.com/parentu and will be available on demand after tonight in English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole. I'd like to extend the school board's gratitude and appreciation to our outstanding Parent Community Involvement Task Force Committee volunteers and amazing Broward County Public School staff for planning and implementing these Parent University sessions. Parent involvement is directly linked to student growth and success. Thank you for being a critical partner, for giving of your time tonight, and for taking an active role in your child's education. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Vicki Cartwright, Interim Superintendent. She joined Broward County Public Schools in August of this year after spending the bulk of her career in Orange County Public Schools, where she was an associate superintendent and then Superintendent in Oshkosh District. She has dove right in to continue to move Broward County Public Schools forward in a positive direction. Welcome, Dr. Cartwright.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that introduction. Thank you so much. Again, good evening. I would like to welcome all of you to this evening's 7th installment of Parent University. This event is brought to parents by Broward County Public Schools and the Parent Community Involvement Task Force, district staff and administrators. The Parent University webinar series aims to provide additional support and information for families. More than 20,000 parents attended the district's first Parent University back in August 2020 during 4 live sessions, and more than 195,000 visitors have accessed the online resources. I would like to give a special thank you to our school board vice chair, Lori Levinson, and the chair of the Parent Community Involvement Task Force, Mary Fertig, for always engaging our parents as true partners in the educational process. With the increasing number of social media apps students are using to communicate with their peers and the increasing popularity of social media challenges, the Parent Community Involvement Task Force and Broward County Public Schools present this evening a new Parent University webinar to create awareness about the dangers of social media. This webinar, as you just heard, is going to be addressing concerning trends around the district and the nation and the potential consequences students can face through their misuse of social media. Families are going to hear from representatives that have a very strong background and expertise related to what are the risks associated with improper use of social media platforms and what you can do about it. Additionally, experts will share tips on what parents should look for on their child's social media, what behaviors should be a cause for concern, and how to talk with your youth about appropriate and inappropriate social media activities. All Parent University webinars have been tailored to help all of our parents, from elementary, middle, and high school to our ESE and our ESOL populations and families. With the use of closed captioning, this event's Parent University webinar is being presented not only in English, but in another 6 languages: Spanish, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, Chinese, Arabic, and Vietnamese. Thank you for making time to participate in this evening's event and for getting involved in your child's education. Please know that we are here for you as we together provide the best and safest educational opportunities to all of our students. Thank you, and I hope you gain useful tips and information through this evening's presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Cartwright. At this time, we are pleased to share a presentation on mindfulness. Mindfulness can assist students and families with reducing stress, increasing resilience, enhancing well-being, and supporting the learning environment. Please join me in welcoming Carolyn St. Angelo, a 30-year educator in the classroom, and now the team leader of the Social and Emotional Learning Team. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fertig, and good evening, everyone. Mindfulness is offered throughout Broward County Public Schools as part of the Foundation for Social Emotional Learning, or CEL, which is the foundation of academic learning, providing an opportunity for students and adults to cultivate awareness and skills to understand ourselves and others, building self-management and responsible decision-making. Broward County Public Schools has partnered with the Center for Mind-Body Medicine to provide training on mindfulness and a trauma-sensitive approach, offering different mindfulness practices and experiences. I apologize for the background sound coming from the wall on the other side if you guys can hear it. Research shows mindfulness can help improve academic focus, emotional regulation, compassion and empathy, and other life skills. I'd like to introduce Catalina Ruiz, a 10th grader from Cypress Bay High School. Thanks to her teacher and sponsor, Miss Rosa Mazoka, Catalina has had the opportunity to be part of the Mind-Body Medicine Ambassadors and a Mindfulness Club for 2 years. Catalina has stated that she's been applying the techniques of coping mechanisms to everyday life, whether it be a quick breathing practice before a test to calm down or cope with anxiety, or relaxing guided meditation mindfulness practice before going to sleep. Catalina will invite you to join us for a brief breathing practice. If you're comfortable, please join in, inviting you to notice how you feel now and after. Catalina.
I invite you to find a comfortable position, closing your eyes or lowering your gaze. Breathe deeply in through your nose and out through your mouth. Imagine that your belly is soft. If your belly is soft and your abdominal muscles are relaxed, then all the other muscles in your body begin to relax as well. This helps to activate the vagus nerve. This nerve wanders up from the belly, through the chest to the central nervous system, and to the brain. It quiets the body, slows the heart rate, improves digestion, lowers blood pressure, and helps your muscles relax. You can say to yourself, soft as you breathe in, and belly as you breathe out. If thoughts come, let them come, and let them go. But gently return your awareness to your breath and to the words soft, belly. And return your awareness to the feeling of your belly being soft and relaxed. No matter how often your mind wanders, gently bring it back each time to the breath. The breath coming in through your nose and out through your mouth. And now, I invite you to take a few more breaths in and out. Take a moment to express gratitude for taking this time. And when you are ready, you can gently open your eyes and bring your attention back into the room. Thank you for taking this time for self-care and well-being.
Thank you so much, Catalina, for offering us that chance to do a mindfulness practice. I know I felt my shoulders drop a few inches, it seems, just by being by participating with you today. So thank you. Back to you, Ms. Fertig.
Thank you so much. At this time, we'll move to the discussion of what is good about social media and what is not. As you can see, we have a full agenda. We will be answering questions in the chat throughout the evening. School board staff and volunteers will respond to questions in the chat. Additionally, there will be 2 question and answer sessions where our speakers will respond to some of the most commonly asked questions that we are selecting from the chat. So at this time, I would like to introduce Michelle Vera, a 39-year plus Broward County School Board educator. She has had the privilege to fulfill several roles throughout her career as a classroom teacher, a media specialist, instructional technology facilitator, and district leader. Currently, she serves as the curriculum supervisor, library media. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fertig. While social media has its share of negatives, which will be addressed, let us take a look at the good things that can happen when kids connect, share, and collaborate online. Next slide. Because of the proliferation and accessibility of web tools, apps, and mobile devices, anyone can produce and publish work online. Digital technology affords students the opportunity to express themselves creatively, share their work with a global audience, and receive validation and feedback so that they can further refine their craft. Twitter, Facebook, and other large social networks expose kids to important issues and people from all over the world. Kids realize they have a voice that they didn't have before and are taking advantage of these apps to promote social responsibility, community service, and global awareness. It also offers students a sense of belonging, connecting with others who share common interests, educational levels, beliefs, or personal challenges. Contrary to the fact that social media can isolate kids, balanced use of social media can lessen feelings of isolation and strengthen their social interactions in a positive way. Online acceptance can provide genuine support, whether a kid is interested in a subject that may not be considered so cool or is grappling with a personal issue. Teenagers can use services such as LinkedIn, a professional network, to let the world know who they are. The minimum age for a LinkedIn membership is 13, so most high schoolers and even some middle schoolers can get a jump start at making a name for themselves. Students use this platform to highlight their talents and accomplishments, document volunteer service, or track awards and club activities, and post a resume of their academic and/or industry certifications. Next slide. Today's kids know and gravitate to social media. So what are the most popular apps students are using? Do you know what they are and which apps teenagers should be discouraged from using? Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and TikTok are some of the favorites among teens. The explosion of apps continues to grow, making it challenging for us as parents to keep up with them. Media and technology can support your child's growth when used wisely and integrated properly. As parents, you can help nurture its positive aspects by accepting how important social media is for kids, engaging in meaningful conversations, and helping them find ways for it to add real value to their lives. Let's take a listen to what our students are saying about the apps they use daily.
I'm going to restart the video in 1 second.
While we're restarting the video, we just want to thank the students at West Broward High School for producing this.
Social media is a fun way to voice their opinions and communicate with their friends. However, 13% of kids ages 12 to 17 report depression and 32% report anxiety. This has become a very serious problem in the increasing mental health problems of teenagers. Parents should find a way to take this into their own hands and protect their children from the dangers of social media.
I would say the main social media apps that I use would be Instagram,
Snapchat, TikTok,
and Twitter.
I would say I'm probably on Instagram the most because I feel like that's where I get most of like my news of what's happening around the world, and I see a lot of funny things.
For Snapchat, I use it to communicate with friends, like text and silly pictures. I use TikTok as a way of entertainment, like for funny content, and I send videos back and forth to my friends.
I think I've had like some negative experiences with the apps. Not too many that I can think of, but I could definitely see that there's some ways where they can be harmful to children.
Not now, but I guess in middle school it used to negatively affect my mental health. I would compare myself with other people.
I have had a lot of negative experience with these apps. It's mainly from people I don't know.
Not dangerous per se, but some weird ones. Like sometimes guys will send you weird pictures that you don't necessarily want, and you just kind of have to block them, and they're a little creepy.
I think parents need to have a good open communication with their kids and teach them about internet safety.
I think they can probably limit social media use so they're not always on it. Like, let them do other activities. Don't let them be consumed by it.
I think parents need to educate their children on what kind of things that their children can encounter on the apps, like some weird men that want to do weird things, and they should monitor what their child is doing on these apps.
Keeping track with what your child's doing on their phone and see what apps they're using. I feel like that would help them. And also, I know there's ways for parents to like track and see where their kids are and just know what they're doing at all times, just to make sure that they're safe.
Screen time is the amount of time spent using a device with a screen, such as a smartphone. Parents can limit the amount of time spent on social media and entertainment apps. They should encourage their children to have an open conversation with them, as well as motivate them to have private accounts and check their followers consistently. For WBTV, this has been Andrea Guzman.
So as you just heard from the voices of our teenagers, while social media offers these teens a fun way to voice their opinions and communicate with their friends, they underscore the importance of open dialogue with their parents and the need for parents to be aware of what and who their children are interacting with. Mary?
Thank you so much. Our presentation tonight is a community effort. Volunteers, school board staff, representatives from the Broward Sheriff's Office and the State Attorney's Office have worked together to identify the issues and provide tips and solutions. To begin the discussion tonight, we'd like to welcome Captain Renee Peterson. Captain Peterson has served as a criminal justice professional for the past 22 years. She joined the Broward Sheriff's Office in 2002, first working in the Department of Detention and then transferring to law enforcement. While working her first patrol assignment in Oakland Park, she quickly learned the importance of grassroots civic engagement. She developed relationships with community leaders and business owners, proving to be an influential problem solver. Over the years, she has served in many positions, including as a detective, a state certified gang investigator. She's led the community service outreach unit. She served with the sheriff's disaster response team. And today she leads the neighborhood support team. In addition to all of this, she's an instructor at Broward College for cadets, and she volunteers in her church locally and abroad, as well as many charitable organizations and foundations. And she is the proud mother of her son and twin daughters. So welcome, Captain Peterson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for the intro. And I'm so happy that this is being addressed. I found that this is not talked about enough, and I'm happy to be here on the criminal justice side, along with Maria Schneider from the State Attorney's Office and Sergeant McInerney, who you will hear from shortly. But hearing the discussion that I spoke to Ms. Rich Levinson about, this is a passion of your organization to talk about this. So just getting right to it. One of the things that I do in my current capacity, I've worked investigations, and I'm very proud of the work that I have done, especially with the gang unit. Because one thing that I learned, and that was really great about working gangs, is that we get to work any type of crimes that gangs commit to. And one of the things I found during the end of my term in that unit was that gangs tend to now exploit and deal in human trafficking. And one of the biggest arenas, or where you will find access to girls or young men, people think men aren't taken in through these social media apps or platforms, is they're on social media. they're talking, we heard from youth in the video prior to of how they're interacting with people who may seem suspect or creepy. The thing is, and Sergeant McInerney will get into it, the youth do not share this with their parents. Teens don't want to tell their parents that this incident happened because they just don't want to have their phones taken. So they feel like they can manage it. But I do believe, and I've heard from parents where I served in Tamarack as a sergeant in our criminal investigations division, that parents had no clue what was going on with their child, whether it was middle school or high school, until their phone was confiscated, whether it was child pornography that was being transferred from one teen to another, and now it's being shared throughout the school. And we have to confiscate a phone because if your phone has child pornography on it and you are the owner of that phone, we have to hold on to it. We have to document this stuff and trace it in case it lands in the hand of a pedophile. And some parents are like, you know what, it was a mistake. Can you just give my child their phone? And when you talk to some of the teens, they are mistakes, but these are mistakes that could change their lives drastically. And Maria Schneider, she will get into it on the side of the state attorney's office. These are some serious allegations that BSO is constantly having to make contact with parents and talk to them about things that their teens are doing at 2 and 3 in the morning, that while their parents were sleeping, and they have no idea some of the platforms that their children are on. And some of the things or reasons why these kids have so much access, the parents have openly said, at least the ones I've dealt with, I had no idea. I want to give my child space. During the pandemic, they had no outlet. They felt locked down. We wanted to give them something that would allow them to explore. But in reality, some parents, and I'm not excluded from that, I have a 25-year-old son and 5-year-old twins. Sometimes when you get busy with life and you're doing laundry and you're doing dishes or cooking or even wanting to have quiet time and read a book, now that we have this tech world where 25 years ago when my son was young, it was not this way. I see a different world being a mom of 5-year-old twins, and there's so much access. And what my fear is, parents now, that is the new babysitter in some ways, or something that you know where your child is, they're home, but they have a device in their hand and you don't know what's on the other side of that. So if I could encourage any of the parents in one of the jobs that we do with the neighborhood support team, we get out, we share resources. We recently hosted a human trafficking event at the Fort Lauderdale Yacht Club for business owners, and a lot of business owners aren't aware. So I can only imagine parents and other young people are not aware of some of these dangers. So one of the things we love to do is come on platforms like this, work with nonprofits and people who are in the school system to educate and share what Sergeant McInerney and his unit are doing so that people are aware. I believe if you know better, you absolutely do better. And you have Mr. Goldstein on from Land Tech Info. He's going to talk about controlling parental devices. He spoke at our conference or at our luncheon. And as a mom with twins who have iPads, tablets, he educated me. And some people tend to think you're law enforcement. You already know. Believe me, in this new tech world, it is a new thing for a lot of us. And as we navigate our way through it, we have to grow together with this new normal. Be accountable for what your children are doing. Check in with them. If they feel that you're not giving them freedom to just be expressive or have their own space, you know, have that conversation with them. And I know it's not easy for parents to do that, but when we want to build trust, sometimes building trust does not mean allowing a teenager to just have full access to some of these applications and some of these websites, because the frontal lobe's not fully developed. There's a reason why when an arrest is made of a teen, it's as a juvenile and not an adult. And I can tell you when I was a teen, I did things I absolutely shouldn't have. And I thought my mom was trying to control me and kill every ounce of fun I wanted to have, but she was acting in my best interest. So parents, don't be afraid to act in your child's best interest. You could keep them from making some choices that they may not be able to come back from. There are parents that have given their children these devices or allowed them to have full access to them. And through these devices, they have walked out of their home, going to school, and that was the last time these parents saw their children again. So please, if you can, I would just encourage you to make sure that you are making sure your child is educated on the dangers and that they absolutely know what is out there and what to report to you. And if you make them feel as though there's nothing they can't tell you and there would be no consequences if they report something to you immediately, that would be a starting point for sharing dialogue and information. I want to introduce Sergeant McInerney. I had the great privilege of working with Sergeant McInerney when I was in the gang unit. He previously was in the gang unit, and now he is a part of our Internet Crimes Against Children, a part of our Strategic Investigation Division. He has a wealth of knowledge in the area of investigation. We've got to work some pretty interesting undercover operations. And I would say now that I'm in the community, I do miss those days. But you really get an inside look at what's going on and the people who would show up at the hotel operations where we work undercover that thought they were coming to see a child. They don't look like you would probably imagine they would look. And these are the people that we're working hard to get off our streets. So without further ado, I want to kick it over to Sergeant McInerney.
Thank you, Captain, for having me. Appreciate the introduction as well. My name is Thomas McInerney. I'm a sergeant with the Broward Sheriff's Office. Been here for approximately almost 20 years now. I joined Icac, which stands for Internet Crimes Against Children, our Icac unit back in 2017. So about 4 years I've been honored to be the supervisor of our Icac unit here at the Broward Sheriff's Office and also serve as the commander of the South Florida Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. I'm going to take the opportunity today to give you guys kind of an overview of what we do here at the Sheriff's Office and with the Icac Task Force system, kind of give you an idea of the sheer volume of cases we're dealing with, what we're kind of dealing with, and what we're seeing here at the Broward Sheriff's Office. Icac, Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, is a national initiative. It's put on by Congress and Department of Justice. There's 61 task forces across the United States. They cover the entire United States. Every state has at least one task force. Your larger states, such as Florida, have multiple task forces. We have 3 task forces here in Florida, North, Central, and South. And the Broward Sheriff's Office has the honor and privilege of hosting and being the lead agency for the South Florida Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. So we cover 12 counties down here in South Florida, up to Indian River on the East Coast, down to Monroe and the Keys, all the way up to Charlotte County on the West Coast, and obviously Broward County, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach as well. Right now, we deal mainly with our investigations on a day-to-day basis here at the Sheriff's Office. We have 7 full-time detectives dedicated strictly to Internet Crimes Against Children investigations. And what we deal with on a day-to-day basis, we deal with the worst of the worst, unfortunately. So a lot of our cases are possession of child pornography, transmission of child pornography, and of course, production, unfortunately, of child pornography. We deal with the enticement of children online, from adults trying to entice children online for sexually exploit them online. And we deal with, unfortunately, a lot of sextortion right now, which I'll go to in a little bit. And then we get down to the sexting, where we have kids sexting with other kids. I know ASA Schneider is going to come on here next and discuss a lot of those penalties, so I'll let her talk and discuss those a little bit more in depth. But what you have on a national level, there's federal laws that state any internet service provider or electronic service provider must report any child exploitation material they find on their platforms. They must report that to the government. So all your Googles, Facebooks, Kicks, you name it, if they find child pornography or child exploitation content on their platforms, they are mandated by federal law to report it. They're not required to look for it, but if they do look for it, which most of them do, they report it to us. Those reports then go to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children on a daily basis. They receive all the tips on a daily basis and push them out to the 61 task forces across the United States for follow-up and investigation. Just to give you an idea of the sheer volume we're talking about here. So on a monthly average here in South Florida, so the 12 counties I talked about, we're getting approximately 700 to 800 tips a month coming in here for investigation. Anywhere from 20 to 100 a day come in. Last year alone, our task force received almost 7,000 tips, and we're already going to surpass that this year. The numbers keep going up and up, obviously, as technology is used more widely with our kids in general, and the technology is there to find it and locate it and report it. Our tips keep going up every year. During the pandemic last year, obviously, more people at home and online, we saw an 81% increase in our cyber tips that we received on a year. So obviously, you can imagine how overwhelmed we can be at times in looking into these investigations and trying to find the predators, the pedophiles, the predators, the people online who are targeting our children. As the captain said, I'm also a father. I have a similar situation that she has. I have a 22-year-old son and a 6-year-old son. So I've gone through it myself on the personal side with a 22-year-old, and things have definitely changed with my 6-year-old now going into kindergarten, and the electronic platforms that he's using, and the threats that are out there. I know you're going to go into the different apps and things like that and ways to protect our kids. There's a million ways to do it. What we're seeing mainly, besides the cyber tips coming in, a lot of our cyber tips are dealing with the worst of the worst, which is the trading of child pornography images. On a local level, with your kids in the schools, we're dealing with the sexting problem today. Every kid out there, unfortunately, it seems like is sexting nowadays. It's very commonplace, especially with the teenagers in high school. And unfortunately, it can turn from something that seems harmless and for two kids to deal with can turn to a serious problem, especially when it comes to sextortion. And if they are sharing, obviously, child pornography images of themselves, it could turn into other issues, which I know the state attorney is going to talk about here in a minute. Sextortion is the biggest thing we're seeing and that sextortion basically is somebody extorting another person for more sexual content. The average scenario would be, little Susie sends little Timmy some pictures, some sexually explicit pictures. He then takes those pictures and threatens her to expose those pictures to her friends and family unless she sends more. That's a basic scenario of sexting and sextortion, turning into sextortion. And a lot of times we'll find that even if it's, somebody you have to watch you with your children, they feel stuck. They don't want to be outed and embarrassed or humiliated with their friends. So unfortunately, they will start giving in to this person and give them more stuff in hopes that they're going to not share it. It's tragic. We see it quite a bit, unfortunately. And by the time it gets to us, unfortunately, it's a lot of times too late. The images are out there. And we love coming on the platforms like this and reaching out to the community, trying to teach teens and parents ahead of time, being proactive instead of reactive. We can't arrest our way out of this situation, and we can prevent people from making mistakes, especially children. It's always beneficial. The one thing I will say, I know we're going to talk about some other, internet safety things here. The biggest thing I can tell parents, what I tell parents all the time, is educate yourself as much as humanly possible. I know Captain Peterson mentioned it. We're all very busy between, sports and life and work and jobs. I implore all parents to just look at your kids' devices, look at the apps that are on there, know the apps, research them. There's a ton of resources out there to help you learn what apps can do. Almost every single app we come across nowadays or platform includes a chatting, video, audio, and text chatting. Even the young, harmless video games have chat platforms now where you can share and send pictures. So it's very hard to protect your child 24/7. So learn the apps, know what they are. And also be available to your kids so they can talk to you. Some of the biggest things we find is we ask these victims when we come across these victims all the time, why didn't you talk to your parents? Why didn't you tell somebody about it? Why didn't you, when you were in trouble, when you made a mistake and it got out of control? And the biggest response we get is they're scared, they're embarrassed to talk to their parents, or the biggest complaint we have, which I'll put out there too, is they're scared they're going to lose their device. As parents, a lot of times I'm included in this, will overreact, and if our child came to us and say, Mom, I just saw this picture, this guy sent me this picture, the first thing you want to do is take that phone away to protect them. And these kids are so stuck to their phones, and it connects them to their friends and their communities that they live in. Their biggest fear is losing that device. So one thing I will recommend to most parents out there is not necessarily don't pull the plug on them, don't take the device, don't overreact, and have that relationship with your child where they feel comfortable. If they do get into trouble, to come to you and feel free to tell you what their problems and get them help. Besides the cyber tips, like I said, we do a lot of district referrals, so people calling 911, and obviously in our schools. So if you get yourself in trouble, please call us at the sheriff's office. Please talk to your school administrators, and they'll get a hold of us as well, or your school resource deputies or officers in the schools. If it gets to that level, we're here to help. We're here to help as much as possible. Our investigations are not easy. Obviously, it's the internet. There is some anonymity to the internet. However, it's not impossible to find out, who our suspects are and track them down. We have our ways of doing such. So I implore people to make sure you keep in contact with your kids, watch them, and educate yourself as much as possible. The only other thing I would say, obviously, is parents, we have to watch our kids on both sides of it. Not only can our kids be victims, but our kids can be the suspects too as well. So we got to watch our children, make sure you tell your children what's acceptable online, make sure that, especially when it comes, like I said, with the sexting and the sextortion, our children can be victims, and they can also be the suspects in it. So please make sure that you watch both sides of it and just pay attention. That's about it. If you have any questions later, please put it in the chat here. I'll be happy to answer questions. I'll stay on here for the Q&A and help as much as I can and answer any questions I can. And I know now we're going to pass it off, I believe, to the Assistant State Attorney, Maria Schneider, as well for the legal side of it and what she has to deal with.
Thank you. That was wonderful and so helpful. We're so fortunate tonight to have with us Assistant State Attorney Maria Schneider to explain the very serious consequences that can result from the improper use of social media. Ms. Schneider is currently assigned to the Homicide Division of the Broward County State Attorney's Office. From 1999 until the beginning of this year, she served as the Assistant State Attorney in charge of the Juvenile Division. She has served on many boards and been involved with many organizations that advocate for the well-being of children in our community. She's worked tirelessly to help the children of our community, including helping youth who have become involved with the delinquency system, prepare the documents necessary to have their delinquency records expunged. We are so fortunate to have you in our community, and we thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. Unfortunately, I think the sergeant was correct. We're very, very worried about the access that our children have to dangers online, but sometimes our children themselves get themselves into some trouble. And I think I'd like to go over some of those laws that affect our children's behavior in a negative, possibly in a negative way. And I think that one of the most important things would be for you parents, now that you become aware of these, both safety issues and issues that have consequences for your children, to discuss them with them. We can talk to kids all day long, but the bottom line is that they trust you. So the information really is best disseminated by you. The first offense that I want to talk to you about, it's listed on the slide. It's written or electronic threats to kill, do bodily injury, or conduct a mass shooting. That's a mouthful, but the bottom line is that what it means is that when kids post any kind of a threat online, it doesn't have to necessarily be words. It can be words and emojis. It can be words and images. It can be any combination of things that impart a message. But when they are threatening to kill or do bodily harm to another individual, or conduct a mass shooting, or engage in an act of terrorism, luckily we don't get that too often, but those are really serious offenses. That's a second-degree felony. It carries a maximum penalty of up to 15 years in prison. Now, children generally are not facing those degrees of consequences, but this is the kind of thing that can stay on your record, you know, even though we go through great lengths to make sure that children's records don't follow them into adulthood. The bottom line is that in this day and age where we have such access to the internet, things get posted, articles get written, and, you know, there's no erasing that. So this is a very, very serious offense. This law was amended effective this year to include any kind of a threat that's posted in a way that could be seen by anyone, not just necessarily by the person who's being threatened, which is different from the way the law was in the past. Kids quite often think it's funny to post something like that online. And sadly, one of the things that we've learned through research that's been done by agencies such as the Federal Bureau of Investigation is that mass shooters, especially mass school shooters, have posted and talked about what they were about to do before they do it. Since we can't tell which kid is just being funny and which one is actually a potential threat, all of these instances have to be taken seriously. They are a tremendous drain on resources and law enforcement time. So this is one offense that I think is particularly important to have a discussion with our children about. The next one that I wanted to speak to you about is the false report concerning or planning a bomb. And, you know, we used to see this one actually a lot more often in the past before we had social media, where it's now so easy to just post something on social media. But this is your proverbial, I'm going to call the school and report that there's a bomb in the school so that I don't have to take a test. You know, it sounds funny when we talk about it this way, but think about the amount of resources that go into investigating this kind of a threat. Schools have to be evacuated. Fire departments have to come out and not be available for other emergencies that can pose a real threat to the safety of others. Aside from the educational time that's being wasted when such threats are made. This is a long-standing law. It's taken very seriously. It's also a second-degree felony, punishable by up to 15 years in prison for adults. Sexting is the next offense that I want to discuss with you, and this has been mentioned by both the captain and the sergeant previously. Sexting is a law that was created specifically to address teens doing things that are inappropriate online. When someone posts an image of an underage person online, it's child pornography. But obviously when it's a child or when it's a young person posting a photograph, perhaps of themselves or of someone that they are with who is, you know, acceding to the photograph being posted, you know, treating it as child pornography might be a little bit too harsh, but we need to discourage this kind of behavior. So the legislature created the offense of sexting. A first offense of sexting is a non-criminal offense. It's kind of like getting a ticket. The idea is that if a child does this, a young person does this, and they don't realize how wrong it is, we're going to not take it that seriously. You know, hopefully the experience of having had the citation issued, having to do community service hours, or perhaps take a cyber safety course will be enough to stop that behavior. But a second offense is a first-degree misdemeanor, and a third offense is a felony of the third degree, which is punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Now, sexting is the making, sending, receiving, or distributing of an image of a minor involved in nudity. So if you make that picture, let's say a young lady makes it and sends it to, you know, the love of her life at the time, which as we all know is very unlikely to be the love of her life for the rest of her life. She sends that image. That young lady has committing the act of sexting because she has disseminated an image, even if it's of herself. If the individual who receives it then disseminates it to someone else, they're engaging in sexting because they're forwarding that image. Now, as you all might be thinking, well, how can you protect yourself against what someone else might send you? Well, the statute indicates that if a youth receives an image, they did not elicit the image, they did not ask for it, they do not distribute it to anyone else, and they take steps to report it to either their legal guardian or a law enforcement or school official, then they cannot be charged with sexting. So merely receiving it when it's not solicited and you don't forward it to anybody else and you report it, you will not get in trouble for it. But sexting is pretty serious, even though the initial consequences aren't that serious, because once an image is out there, it's out there. You can't, it's like trying to collect spilled milk. You really, really can't. And those images quite often end up being on porn websites or used in the manner that I'm about to discuss, which is sexual cyber harassment. Sexual cyber harassment, also known as revenge porn law. It's the law that tries to control when someone maliciously takes an image that was sent to them, quite often consensually, and then either disseminates it against the person's wishes who sent the image, or uses it, as the sergeant was saying, to extort another individual. And this is a very dangerous situation. Our kids quite often are online. They don't realize that, you know, sending somebody a slightly inappropriate picture is a problem. And then that person will actually use that picture and the threat of disseminating that picture to force that young person to create even more images that are more of a problem behavior. So sexual cyber harassment, and quite often is something that stems from the innocent picture that the young lady took of herself and sent to her boyfriend or, you know, whatever. So sexual cyber harassment, also a felony of the third degree. A first offense is not a felony. A first offense is a misdemeanor, but a second will be a felony of the third degree. Very, very serious. And then the last consequence that I want to discuss is not a criminal consequence, but it's a consequence that quite often actually has a much more impactful and long-lasting lasting effect on our children. And that's employment searches. This has become commonplace in today's market. If you go and you apply for a job, you have to fill out an application that requires you to provide your social media contacts or your social media sites that you participate in. Quite often an employer will search those, and they're not just searching to see if you committed, an offensive sexting or anything like that. They're searching for all kinds of things. They want to know, are you the kind of person that in a past job, has played hooky? You went to the beach when you should have been working. They want to know if you were engaged in underage drinking. They want to know if you've engaged in any kind of problematic behavior beyond just the sexting or the sexual harassment. These employment searches are stopping our children sometimes from getting jobs that they are very well equipped to engage in. And it's a shame to close doors like that at such an early age. But kids need to be made aware of that. And they might think, oh, well, I'll just delete my social media before I apply for that job. That's a red flag too. In today's day and age, it would be very unusual for a young person not to have credentials on at least some of the more commonly known social media sites. So an employer is going to take the fact that you don't have such social media contacts as a very, very significant and very much of a red flag, something very suspicious. So those are all consequences that are very real that can affect the future of our children and that we as parents should be discussing with them, not in a threatening way, but just in an informational way. They need to know. They need to know that that picture that they thought was funny, that threat or that desire to scare or be funny that you posted online could have some really significant consequences today and in the future. And thank you very much for the time to speak to you about these things.
Thank you. That was wonderful. At this time, we're ready for our first question and answer session, and I want to introduce Natalie Beasley, who has served on the Parent Community Involvement Task Force for the past 6 years. In addition to serving on the task force, she's also served on SACs and SAFs at various schools. She's been a PTA vice president. She's on the District Advisory Council and on the Diversity Committee for Broward County Public Schools. And we are so pleased to have you as our moderator.
All right, thank you so much, Mary. I'm pleased to be with you all this evening. And thank you to our panelists for the valuable information that you've shared this evening. There have been a few questions in the Q&A about when is the right age for a child to get a cell phone. This is going to be addressed later on in the presentation. And I also want to remind our audience that this session is being recorded so that families can have the opportunity to go back and discuss this information with their child later on. One of the questions that's been asked, and I want to pose this to Captain Peterson. You talked about parents, being aware of what their child is looking at and their social media, what they're accessing. What do you think is the most appropriate way for a parent to approach their child about looking in their device, to see what's going on so that we can stay aware and knowledgeable about what they're accessing?
Well, that's a great question because I will tell you how I messed it up and what not to do. Having a 25-year-old, looking back, he moved to Colorado, that's where he currently lives, and we had talks. And I noticed he was more and more and more withdrawn from wanting to share with me. My background in criminal justice, I started out working in the Department of Corrections, so I treated his room like an inmate cell. I would search his room. That brought him great discomfort. He was like, Mom, you're treating me like an inmate. And he had no privacy. But because of what I was exposed to, working in the field of criminal justice at the age of 21, I knew what was out there, how people ended up in prisons and jails, and how easy it was to be taken in. So I will say the way I handled it was not the best. I wish I had more dialogue that was open and inviting instead of demanding and pushy, because at the end of the day, he had to go to school, I went to work, and there were things that I could not make him tell me. So do not come from a standpoint of, this will not stand, pounding your fist, this is my house, you have no privacy, and take the phone. Because when I took the phone away, I quickly realized I needed it to pick him up from school. I needed to know where he was. So you end up giving it back. So it's this tug of war of control. I would say now that my son and I, we have a great relationship, probably because he lives in another state and I can't search his room anymore. But he and I talk, and he said, Mom, if we could do it over, I wish you would just sometimes ask me. You would tell me. And if we could sit down and talk and I knew you weren't gonna lose your mind and flip out and yell at me, that made me withdraw. And now we talk. So have dialogue. And even if they share something with you on the inside and you feel yourself just like infuriated because they're sharing with you, some predator is sending them these pictures. Breathe. I believe in the Center for Mind, Body, and Medicine. We did the soft belly breathing earlier. Breathe and say, okay, you know what? Take the positive. They're talking to me. That is a win. And when you can create safe spaces where they talk to you, share something, and you don't overreact and they walk away, believe me, they're like, all right, if it's not coming today, it'll come tomorrow. Don't. And they keep coming back. So yeah, just create a safe space to share and come up with a plan, and don't tell them all the time what they need to do. I now got a second chance with my 5-year-olds, and I ask the question, in this moment, are you making good choices? I let them decide, and they know if they're making good choices or not. And I allow them the space to make better choices and trust that I'm raising my children to be smart and capable. I mean, that's the best answer I can give.
That's really awesome. And I'm sure everyone appreciates your candor, because like you mentioned, we think those of you working in law enforcement, that you have all the answers and that you know everything. So as parents, we're constantly learning and growing as well. So thank you so much for your candor. Sergeant McNerney, this is a very personal question from our Q&A, and I'm not going to list anybody's names, but they seem to really want some guidance. You know, teens these days, you know, they're constantly changing their passwords to their social media accounts, and it seems really difficult for parents to find or know what they're doing, how to monitor and access their accounts, particularly when there may have not been, there's been some dishonesty, you know, kind of in the past, and parents seem to be overwhelmed and confused and kind of scared. I mean, if a parent finds out, for instance, that their child is receiving unwanted pictures from other students, what is the best approach that they should take to get that addressed, the parents, in order to help that child navigate that type of situation?
Absolutely. And as Captain Peterson said, it's a discussion you have with your child and have that open communication. If they come to you, which is phenomenal that they come to you and they are being exposed to content, if it's coming from another child at the school, the best thing you can do, first of all, is immediately stop the content from coming. So you can block that user on most social media apps. You can block another user's account. You can also report images or content to the actual social media app itself. So your Facebooks, Kicks, Twitters, all of them have reporting mechanisms built in place. All of these major platforms have help centers you can go to where it teaches parents how to use the app and how to report it properly. And that's the initial thing. If it's a fellow student, you can obviously go to the schools, the school resource officers, and talk to them, the school administrators. If it's other parents, you can even possibly look into talking to the other parents, especially with the younger age of the kids now. But unfortunately, it rises to the level of criminality beyond sex. We're talking about extortion or things like that, or child pornography, or sending harmful material to a minor. Then you get a hold of law enforcement. And if you live in, obviously your local law enforcement, you can reach out to them. If you don't get the response you want from your local law enforcement, you can always go to the National Center as well, which is I'll put it in the chat as well, NETMEC we call it, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They have a 1-800 number. It's actually 1-800-THE-LOST, LOST. I can put that in the chat as well. And they have an online cyber tip line and .org. You can actually report any online sexual exploitation tips to them, and it will get routed to us through the task force system as well. We can help out with that as well. But that's the first and foremost is having a communication. If they're feeling comfortable coming to you, immediately stop it via being blocking the person out on the apps. there are safety. You can go online and do basic searches of internet safety. There's platforms and software and technology you can actually purchase and subscribe to that will monitor your kids' devices in the background and kind of look for certain chats and keywords and nudity and different platforms. Those are good tools, and they're definitely worth looking into. I would caution about relying on them 100% because unfortunately these apps change all the time, so they're not foolproof. So it's not a one fix-all thing. You can't go download it, this program and your kid's going to be safe. But it's definitely a tool parents have access to, and there's a whole bunch of them out there, you can look at that will monitor your kids' actions online. But the best thing is obviously yourself to monitor it. You have that privacy. I have, like I said, like Captain said before, I have a 22-year-old. We had some, when they get older into the teens, they want that privacy. And you'd be surprised. We come across our kids are doing good. The kids are educated. If you keep your kids educated, and today we have some smart children, and we see a lot of times where the children, online, the teenagers are actually stopping and reporting themselves. We'll see chats that we're looking in our investigations where these kids will say it'll stop or block, or they're not engaging with the individual. So our kids are smart and capable of policing themselves and staying away from it, especially our teenagers. And they're educated and have that connection with their parents and discussion.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that information. The next question I have is going to be for ASA Maria Schneider. You talked about some of the flags as far as social media when someone is looking for employment and going through and possibly deleting that. Can you talk about, what if someone, in their teen years, they made a mistake, they were arrested, but they were not charged. Can you talk about, I guess, some of the other future opportunities that could be lost in regards to that?
Absolutely. Luckily, we have laws that stop any kind of information regarding minor offenses from being made public. So a teenager that gets arrested for instance, has a first or even a second sexting offense, a first being a non-criminal violation and a second one being a misdemeanor, that information is not going to be public. It's available to law enforcement, but it is not going to be public. Someone's not going to be able to run a background check and see that. But a young person that gets in trouble for a felony offense, sadly, that is public. There is nothing to protect against that. However, a youth can seal the record, can petition to seal that record as long as they haven't been adjudicated guilty or it's not a certain type of offense, they can seal that. And even if they can't, once a youth turns 21 years old, as long as they haven't been, and I'm talking about extremes now, a youth who has committed an offense that's so serious that they were transferred to adult court, they were dealt with as an adult, that youth is not going to have their record disappear. But short of that, at age 21, a juvenile record completely disappears from the public. The danger, however, is that we have found that there are private companies who are purchasing public records, and we can't do anything about that. I have, for a long time, been urging people to urge our legislators, our lawmakers, to make laws that make that illegal. But that would be, in the private market, and there's nothing that we can do about that. So your official record will disappear at age 21, barring some really, unusual circumstances. But the danger is always there that a private company may have purchased, your record before it disappeared.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate you all taking the time to answer our questions from our audience. I'll turn it back over to you now, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. What a fantastic panel. The next section of our program will be dedicated to sharing strategies for safeguarding our children. Our first speaker is Michael Goldstein, President and CEO of Land Infotech LLC. He has more than 30 years experience in the information technology industry as a technology business analyst. Michael distills complicated IT issues into real-life, relatable examples and solutions. His engaging delivery style makes him a regular speaker at the Broward Bar Association, Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, Greater Miami, Pompano, Miami Beach, many chambers of commerce. Land Infotech is a professional information technology consulting and cyber security firm. We welcome you and we look forward to hearing your strategies. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. Everyone before me really set the bar very high. So I was looking, and I've actually changed my notes about 5 times just on the presentation here. And traditionally, I'm servicing businesses, and I go out there, but I too have some older kids. I have a 35-year-old, a 32-year-old, and a 25-year-old. And my biggest problem with my 35-year-old when cell phones first came out is him utilizing all his texting minutes. So but now I have a 2-year-old grandson, a 1-year-old, and a 7-month-old, and I wonder what am I going to do to go out there and protect them? And I think someone had brought up to me, and it was kind of an interesting piece that stuck with me for a while. The internet is like an ocean, enticing but dangerous. And I think we really all have to come up with some strategies to control these mobile devices, but also let's not forget that, once they're in your home, you might have an iPad tablet that doesn't have cellular access. We really do have to go out and lock down your home internet and home devices. So I really wanted to lean on that. One of the biggest things is I probably can't watch cable TV at night without a commercial for parental controls. And what we don't realize many times is that depending on the age of the child, parental controls are built right into the devices that are there. Very simple things on Apple to go out there and lock down those. I'm on a Samsung device today, and right inside of my device is a kids button to be able to go down and lock down that device. Again, I know we're dealing with different age groups here. Now, up on the screen, we put some resources that are out there. And I think there was a lot of questions that came up is, how can I alert myself? How could I go out there and see that inappropriate content? And I don't want to lead you in the wrong directions. I think the sergeant had it perfectly right. These devices are changing very fast, and we don't realize that even the internet itself isn't regulated. As a new internet site comes out, there are third-party companies that rate these sites. So inside your home today, you have some type of, hopefully you have some type of Wi-Fi that's out there and some cable. Cable providers like Comcast and AT&T give you the ability to go out there and manage the internet, be able to set filters up. There's various free products that are out there like OpenDNS Family Shield, Family Zone, Safe Kids. These are applications that give you the ability from the internet side at home to be able to say, hey, I can't go to gambling sites, I can't go to tobacco sites. So that way, once you're inside of the home, we can go out and regulate it. Now, again, not everybody has the ability to control the device. So I think it's important that, and I think someone had brought it up earlier, that children have to be 13 or older for a LinkedIn account. That carries the same way for Google, that carries the same way for Apple. So in reality, you can set up family accounts and then just hope as they grow a little older that you still keep those family accounts in place there. So create a family account, go out there, create the child's account, and then put on the parental controls that are built directly into the device. Now, I have a 5-year-old nephew. We had an event on Saturday, he was over there. I looked at his iPad, we have it locked down with Apple. We have YouTube for Kids locked down, but occasionally things slip through. Now, I know there's a lot of different apps that are in place, and unless you really lock that device, I also feel that you have to have some open dialogue. You have to start early. I remember having a contract with my 25-year-old on limiting his time. Now, one of the other things, and it sounds kind of crazy, and we all probably buy into it, and we have the ability to control our kids, but when we get these unlimited data plans, you have the ability to parse their data, only give them a certain amount of data a month. So again, it's not the perfect piece, but I know that my kids are living on their phones. So if I limit the data that they're on and limit what I can do inside of the house, because I keep saying that, iPads don't normally come with cellular, meaning you need Wi-Fi, Google Chrome devices, and also for your own devices that you have out there. I've been to plenty friends' house or even, home offices where the devices are openly out there. If the child can't get on to a site on their device, they'll go on your device. And one of the biggest things that we really need to go out and protect, and I was watching all the pieces before me, and the first thing is, I didn't do it. Passwords. Control those passwords. What we do see is that we use, for a lot of our businesses, an application called LastPass. And LastPass gives you the ability to share passwords, but there's a family plan. So the children can maintain their own passwords. I remember when my 25-year-old was in college, it would be every Sunday night they would be giving me a call for the Showtime or HBO to go password. Maintain those passwords in a password manager. LastPass has a free family program that's out there. So I think it's important to go out there, manage the passwords, manage the network, and look at those devices that are there. Have some downtime. Remember, screen time is something that you can track. If they're younger, it's built into these devices. So don't look far, start from the base up, and try some of these apps. Seeing a lot of questions going out there, so hopefully people are responding, and we'll cycle back to that, trying to multitask here. So in summary, look for the native pieces that are there. Look for Google or Apple. Both those devices have the ability to go out and limit what people can get to, limit to what the younger child gets to. And I really wish that I had a great answer for the high school teenagers that are out there, because I lived that too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. At this time, I want to introduce Michael Walker and Kimberly Young. The school district recognizes the many serious social media issues facing our students, and they've been proactive in developing and implementing strategies and protocols. Mr. Walker is the Director of School Climate and Discipline in the Division of Student Support Initiatives and Recovery under the direction of Dr. Antoine Hickman. He is the former principal at Park Ridge and Sunrise Middle School, and he is joined by Kimberly Young, who is the instructional facilitator of School Climate and Discipline, Prevention, and Peer Counseling Coordinator. That's a long title there. Ms. Young is a former teacher at Rickards Middle School. Welcome.
Thank you. And good evening, and thank you for having us. We're very happy to be here tonight. In our Department of School Climate and Discipline, where Kimberly and I work, we work on shaping the school environment. We work with discipline, but most importantly, we work on prevention strategies. And tonight, Kim is going to share with you one of our prevention strategies in combating the social media issues is a program called Think Before You Post. And it's a district-wide initiative that we're getting the word out and educating all of our students on. And Kim is going to explain in more detail the great program that we're starting out this school year. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction, Mr. Walker. So Think Before You Post campaign, go ahead to the next slide, is a campaign that actually talks about everything that our previous presenters talked about for our students. So we go through the 5 online dangers that our students go through, number 1 being the permanency of our post. Your post can haunt your future. 2, the potential embarrassment of post. If you don't want everyone to see it, don't let anyone see it. 3, safety, privacy, predators. Don't be overexposed online. 4, acts that are criminal, piracy, and plagiarism. Your post may be used against you. And then what effects are your post having? And then cyberbullying. If you wouldn't say it to someone's face, don't say it online. These are 5 weeks worth of lessons focused around each of these topics for the school. It starts off with a school-wide kickoff conversation with the students. Next slide, please. And then in this presentation, we also have a teacher component as well as a parent component that we can come out and speak to the schools. How to keep your children safer online is one of our important conversations that we have around these topics. So as a parent, you need to know that their technology is always on, even if you take away their phone. They may actually be suffering from information overload. Their pressure to broadcast is real. They will be exposed to inappropriate content, people, and influences. And having that open conversation and dialogue with your child is the most important thing you can do. You must embrace their world, and if you want to be effective, protect them. The 3 online safety strategies that we talk about is communication while online. That permanency of their post is there. That embarrassment does happen. Cyberbullying, and then what effects their posts are having. And then teaching them to access to your information and their computer and about safety and privacies. And then their activity while they're actually online about using post against them, which was previously spoken to regarding, for example, sexting. Communication is the key between you and your child. Human connection. Communicate and connect through time and attention. It will build trust and allow you to set the limits. Limit setting equals discipline equals love. Between your child and the online world, create and enforce rules of the road. So I like what Ms. Walker said, Michael said before, have that contract with your child. It's okay. What are you sharing? Teaching your child what they're sharing, images of yourself, images of others, and how are you treating others actually online? And then monitor their social media. Social media be your child's friend to monitor behavior, but respect their privacy and only confront safety issues. Do you have all of their passwords? Can they download apps and create profiles without you knowing? Set those Google alerts for you and your child's name, privacy, and contact information. Make sure your child is not giving out too much information in their pictures that they post or the information that they post online. Next slide. I think that was it for mine.
So moving into what the district is doing to help students safe online, Broward County Public Schools is committed to helping students stay safe online and adheres to the belief that technology should play a vital role in meeting the needs of our diverse student population. Policy 5306, School and District Technology Usage, provides guidance for appropriate technology utilization and integration into the curriculum, as well as infusion into school and district administration and management. The district has also purchased digital applications such as Nearpod for all K-12 teachers, which includes a digital citizenship and literacy supplemental curriculum that empowers students to use technology safely, responsibly, and effectively. Literacy skills are taught through a partnership with Common Sense Education with over 400 engaging and interactive learning experiences, with each lesson taking on real challenges and digital dilemmas that students face today. Next slide. You still hear the term digital native a lot. Just because our students have been inundated with technology since birth does not automatically position them to know how to use it to find information. Students aren't necessarily adept at handling information and media and thinking about ways that media can be manipulated. Mike Ribble, author of Digital Citizenship in Schools, says digital citizenship can be defined as the norms of appropriate responsible behavior with regard to technology use, specifically with regard to 9 elements reflected on this slide. The school's library media specialist, as the information literacy specialist, plays a prominent role in teaching students how to find and evaluate information to ensure its reliability, to think critically and make informed decisions about the information they encounter, share, or produce. As school librarians, we help our students understand the ethical issues connected to information use and guide them with challenges they face concerning what information to share and how to handle their online identity. As mentioned in the previous slide, Common Sense Education is another great resource used to teach digital citizenship and supports educators' need to prepare students with lifelong habits and skills. So if you want to click on the link, Common Sense Education Resources, it is a free curriculum. You want to click on that link if there is time available. This free curriculum also includes expert advice and EdTech ratings to help kids thrive and navigate the digital world. Professional development and parent education resources are also provided to engage families and communities with helpful tips and tools. Did I freeze?
Thank you.
Or are we
Nope.
going to move on?
We're going, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, we're going to continue with hearing from district staff. We set connecting safely as a priority. And here to talk with us first, we will have Ken King to discuss social media and our elementary students. Kenneth King is presently a cadre director in the Office of School Performance and Accountability. He has 29 years experience in education as a principal, assistant principal, and a primary teacher at the elementary level. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the introduction. I think one of the questions that we keep seeing in the chat is, and I had that question when I was an elementary school principal, is what age should a child at elementary have a phone? And I'd always frame that question for my parents, is it a need for a phone or a want for a phone? And that kind of determines what you need to do or go about. Having a phone is always very important when there could be emergencies or pickup requests, especially as students branch out on their own, going home by themselves or sports or all of those kinds of things. However, making that decision at that early age is a responsibility for the student and mostly responsible for the parent. Parent at the elementary grades, when you do that, you don't have to unleash the entire internet on your child's phone at the same time. As you heard throughout this presentation, having parent controls, knowing passwords, knowing all of those things are very, very important. But when it happens, or when you are going to allow your child to have a device, make sure you have a plan in place. One of the things I always suggested to my parents is when you introduce a phone to a child at an early age, make sure you're ready to develop a device application contract with your child. It's going to be a formal agreement where you make some agreements about some specific things, that you're going to require that phone or that device to be charged in your space and not their space overnight. Or you're going to create phone free time where there is not going to be screen time. You're going to designate times of the day when you are not going to be using that phone. And most importantly, for a child at that young age, making sure that the parent is leading it through example, making sure that you're not always on your phone and you're using your applications in the appropriate ways. Technology and the devices are very important to start off at those early ages, but I will go back to how I started. Make sure that you are ready for that decision, and that you're ready and your child is responsible enough and mature enough to handle those pieces. Now I'm going to introduce my colleague at the secondary level, Ms. Priscilla Ribeiro-Bazil. She's our secondary principal supervisor. She's been an educator for 3 decades. She's been an administrator and teacher at the secondary level, and fortunately has 4 of her own kids. And she's going to give us another perspective. Priscilla?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I feel like mostly I'm going to kind of remind and repeat some of the things that you've heard already this evening. At the secondary level, we've seen a surge in inappropriate social media. So some of the things you might want to know as a parent. First of all, if your child accepts you into their social media world, that's wonderful. And people have said, make sure that you don't judge them, but also know that it doesn't necessarily mean you're actually seeing everything that your child does, because it's very easy for them to create several accounts. And we've seen many cases where our kids do that. One of the advice that everybody gave was, don't judge your kids, communicate with them. That is critical, that you do keep that open line of communication. and that they're not afraid to come to you, but they do share. So I thought the officer did a great job in the beginning, who said, you know, she first went into her son's room and checked on everything. And she said, you better hold it in. If you feel really strongly about something, you kind of have to breathe and let them share their thoughts, because you're better off knowing and being able to communicate than having them be afraid to tell you. Share consequences in language they can understand. Sometimes, you know, if you tell them you're not going to be able to get a job at a certain age, that doesn't mean much to them, right? Or you might get arrested. They find that so removed. But maybe I'm going to keep your phone for 48 hours, or you know, any other language where the consequence is more clear depending on your child's age. The other thing we've noticed is that often the kids who are making threats on social media, which has been one of the main things we've been seeing this year, those students are angry. They do feel like they've been slighted, or, you know, something has happened at school. So just be observant of certain behaviors, like if they are angry at home, if they are brooding, if they're sad, if they're quiet, overly quiet. That's a sign that you need to try to talk to them and help them through, and maybe give them other options rather than using social media to express their anger. And it's interesting, just in case you have kids of different ages, that with our 9th and 10th graders, those are the students that we've seen more make threats, or you know, they don't want to take a test, so there's going to be a bomb threat, right? Or there's a bomb, they put out something like that. They don't realize that they can get caught. So that's what's been happening with our 9th and 10th graders. But with our upper level students, we do see a lot of depression and an increase in self-harm, right? So do be cognizant of these things. And really the best thing you can do, and the slide kind of talks about how addictive, you know, in the pictures, social media is terribly addictive, and it does work the brain in the same ways as drugs do even. So if you can, and limit the time on social media, that's really the best way to keep your kids healthy. And I thought that the speaker at the beginning of this section, right after the question and answer, gave some great options that I wasn't aware of as to how to be able to limit your child's use of social media through the device, as well as through different programs that can alert you. So that's all the tips we have, that I have today. I don't know who comes next. Back to
Carolyn. We're going to welcome back Carolyn Santangelo.
Thank you so much. So many valuable resources, and we'd like to share 2 more positive tools. Broward County Public Schools has connected with some amazing research-based partners who offer mindfulness apps and social emotional learning websites. The first resource on the left is Interim, a free app that provides a click and play audio or video recordings of mindfulness practices that are age appropriate and engaging. Practices develop that ability to pause and respond versus react. Remember, practice makes, not perfect, but practice makes progress. So Interim is offering a 21-day challenge, which is a fun way to help build a mindfulness practice, because generally it takes 21 days to build a habit. What a great way to find that pause before posting on social media or picking up the phone because you have that impulse. The second resource on this screen is a social emotional learning activity and videos from Rethink Ed. The image on the right is an activity, among others. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see some others listed that deal with and address cyber usage, such as think before you post. It's also available closed caption in Spanish. These two tools offer great ways to engage as a family or to discuss together. And I'll drop in the Q&A the link so you can join and enroll in both of these free apps. We hope that you find them supportive and useful and a positive way to use technology. Thanks. Back to you, Ms. Ferdig.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of you, and you're not quite done because it's time for our next question and answer session with Natalie Moffett-Beasley. And I just would like to let everybody know, I know we're running about 10 minutes over, but I think we've had a lot of great information tonight, and I'm looking forward to hearing these next question and answer session, Natalie.
All right, thank you so much, Mary. So I'm going to turn this to Ken and Priscilla, so maybe they could answer this together. Some of the questions that we've had are, okay, what are appropriate time limits for the various age groups? And I know it's kind of different because you have elementary school, so you've got, 5 and 6 year olds, but then you also have preteens that are preparing to go into middle school. And then of course you have, when you look at high school, you have young adults who are preparing, to leave the nest and can hopefully continue their post-secondary education or go on to work. It's just really a balancing act, especially when you have those various age groups in the same household, because you have those siblings, they see, oh, well, they get to do this, why can't I? And that creates a whole nother dynamic in the household. So what tips do you have for our families out there as far as appropriate social media times and time limits just on technology in general?
I'd start with the elementary, and I think it's really going to be around what the screen time looks like for a child. Because if you think about it, they have an iPad, they might have a phone, they're using technology in school, they have TV. So as a parent, and being a parent of a 18-year-old and a 21-year-old, it was difficult trying to manage screen time. But really, it's really around what your priorities at home and kind of what alternate activities you can give at the early age other than looking at a device. It could be family time where you're just sitting around the table talking. It could be reading. It could be going outside. My biggest suggestion is kind of find an alternate activity where you don't have to use the device in order to babysit a child, especially at the young ages.
All right, thanks, Priscilla.
And I would share, we have a 15-year-old, so she, and I wish I'd heard Ken's comments when we gave her phone at, I think, 7th grade. But, I think that one of the things you can do is, I think Michael was the one that mentioned, making sure that maybe you turn off the device at a reasonable bedtime, right? So often she has to do homework, she's doing research, whatever. But tonight, I'm going to make sure that we put a stop at 11:30, just because I'm going to find out how we do that. But I think, when you think that they need to be asleep, that's when the device has to go off. And it's true, it's a hard balance because she works in her room doing her homework. And but I think you really do have to just balance, or have her, she would have to ask, right? So if you have it cut off time at 10, then you need the internet longer, you're going to have to ask for it and let us know why.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that perspective. Is Michael still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Thanks, Michael. If you could just, some of our families have asked just for you to review some of the websites and the tips as far as the parental controls. So if maybe you can start with the parental controls and where they're at in the settings, like for the iPhone and then for the Android enabled devices, so that parents know exactly where they can begin this process to set those limits.
Sure, I don't have my teacher plan in front of me, so I'll just.
It's okay, we'll wing it. I'll do the iPhone.
What I would say, so listen, so inside, I'm an Android user, and one of the best things to do is to just, do the search on there. The parental controls changed all the time of where they go, and it's the same thing in Apple. Apple website and the Android site, or, you know, a Google site, are really good ways to go out there and find. I don't want to point you to YouTube because we never know if we have the right video that's there. But I think on Priscilla's piece also, you know, there are ways to set, you know, screen time usage. There are ways if you're in the house to go out there and also limit, you know, internet access by putting a password on there. I bring it up only because I did set it up in my son's house, even though I have a 2-year-old there. But, you know, Comcast is really good, and AT&T services are really good in helping you to figure out what you can control, how to turn things on and off on the Wi-Fi on there. And then with screen time usage, you can limit that, hey, 11:30's, you know, and that phone gets locked. You know, it's tough for me to sit there and think about, you know, where the age difference is. A lot easier in elementary school and middle school to somewhat control versus sometimes I think the high schoolers are smarter than us all.
Yes, that they are. I think we all feel the same way. And then the last question I have in this session, really, it's just a recap. I don't know if Sergeant McTierney is still with us, but he mentioned some websites that he was going to be posting in the Q&A. So Sergeant McTierney, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to do that, but if you would like to provide that to us, we'll make sure that we share that information as a resource on our Parent University website so that it can be accessible to parents after this session.
Absolutely. I had the opportunity in the quick Q&A to post the phone number and the website for the National Center for parents that wanted to report it. That was asked of me earlier. I'll put in there and share with you guys as well. There's many resources out there. Obviously, we have our task force has a website, which is South Florida, Icac.org. It has a lot of resources on there. The National Center itself has a website. It's a great resource for parents. It's called Net Smarts, and that's smarts with a Z. So net, NETSMARTZ.com and .org. It's a great resource. They put a lot of money and resources in there for parents to go on there for tip sheets and even videos for your younger kids to watch and programs to do internet safety on there. It's a great resource. But even a simple Google search of internet safety will provide all kinds of resources out there. There's a lot of resources out there for parents and teachers and students to go on there for internet safety resources. But I'll also put those on the Q&A as well.
Great, and we'll make sure that it's available. Obviously, this presentation is going to be available afterwards as well, and then we'll make sure we'll have a separate section for those resources on the Parent University website. So that parents don't have to go all the way back through this presentation to access those resources. All right, thank you all so much. Mary, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. And at this time, I think we have a final mindfulness exercise. So Carolyn, welcome.
Thank you again. As we wrap up this presentation with an optimistic closure, inviting you to join a brief mindfulness practice that you can use with your children or your child at home. If you have a phone nearby, inviting you to pick it up, but don't turn it on. And imagine that each time you pick up your phone, you find the invisible pause button before you turn it on. Instead, taking a breath and noticing perhaps how heavy the phone feels, the temperature, the corners. And then take a breath with me now, inviting you perhaps to do a soft belly breath like Catalina offered. Aware when it is we need to pause and possibly reflect and think on that think acronym we saw earlier. Is it true before we post? Is it helpful before we post? Is it inspiring, necessary, and is it kind? Take one more breath and ask yourself, am I reactive or calm? Does this serve me and serve others? And visualizing yourself pausing and responding versus that reacting so we see our choices. Thank you. If your eyes were closed, opening them back up, and back to you, Ms. Fertig. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. At this time, please join me in thanking our producers, Jason Greenberg and Kevin Williams. We hope you enjoyed our program tonight and that you found it informative and helpful. As a school district and as a community, our commitment to raising children in a safe and nurturing environment comes first and foremost. To do that, we must know the dangers that they face. We thank the Broward Sheriff's Office, in particular, Captain Renee Peterson and Sergeant Tom McInerney, for sharing their experiences and their advice. We also thank Assistant State Attorney Maria Schneider for her knowledge and guidance. Within the district, we're fortunate to have dedicated staff who work tirelessly every day to keep students safe. We thank each and every one, as well as tonight's presenters, Carolyn Santangelo, Michelle Rivera, Chuck Rivera, Ken King, Michael Walker, Priscilla Rivera-Basil, Kimberly Young, Canalita Ruiz. I'd like to take a second to give a special thank you to Dr. Daryl Diamond. She's worked with us on every one of our parent universities. Last year, she served as the District Director of Innovative Learning, which included instructional technology, instructional digital materials, library media, gifted and talented students, and global learning. Dr. Diamond was a pioneer in the e-learning space. She very quietly retired last June, but she continues to work with us on Parent University as a volunteer and continues to guide us through our development of the programs. I'd also like to thank my fellow volunteers on the Parent Community Involvement Task Force who dedicate many hours to Parent University: Janet Bravo, Natalie Beasley, Lou Naylor, Zoe Saunders, and Monica Nelsis. And a very special thank you to Vice Chair of the Broward County School Board, who always helps to plan and produce Parent University, Lori Rich Levinson. I hope this program was helpful. It will be posted on the school board website at www.browardschools.com/parentuniversity, as well as the homepage of every school website under additional links. Please encourage your family and friends to view it. The next slide will include some resources, and as Natalie said, we will call those out and have them on our website as well. Thank you again for joining us. We hope to see you at the next Parent University.